Okay, look, we're ready to start. Okay, and I would like to introduce Helen Frink, and she is the Community Outreach Coordinator for the East Baton Rouge Parish Department for IS Services. And she's going to give us some info on the open data PR and the EBR GIS portals. So thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Also we'll have two other presenters with us. My big bosses, Warren and Eric. I'll let them introduce themselves as well.
I'm Warren Crone, the Geographic Information System Manager.
And I'm Eric Romero. I'm the Director of Information Services. So our information services, we handle all the technology for city parish.
You can
Okay.
leave it on. Yeah, we can see good.
So yeah, we'll just do a quick overview of some digital resources, and then I'll turn it over to Warren to talk about GIS, and then Eric's going to do some Red Stick 311 tutorials too.
Can they see that?
Yes, I have my little camera on right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so first thing, we call this our digital front door to the city. So we have a brand new website, just got reskinned. It's very beautiful. We're very excited about it. I don't know if y'all are ever checking out the city website, but it's the perfect place to find information about various departments. You can always search what you're trying to do, or you can click through our various tabs at the top. And then once you scroll down, there's a lot of different sections, but I think the two most commonly used ones are our popular links, which shows you, your 311 request for services, which Eric will talk more about, whether you need to find out when your garbage is getting picked up. And if you're not getting it picked up, then you can go to 311. Permits and inspections, the mayor's office, things of that nature. And then we have our scrolling city parish news and updates. So any press releases that are going out from the mayor's office or from anywhere else, that's what's getting pushed up to the top. So any of the latest news you can find on that homepage. So again, like I said, newly reskinned, hopefully better to navigate, easier to navigate, and it's just brla.gov. And again, just the best place to get started with information. You can always get deeper in through various department pages and things of that nature. Tune into the council meetings. Pretty much everything you can find it there. But then let me get
Ellen, just real quick.
Mhm.
Previous screen, the link at the top is wrong. So you mentioned the
yep.
website is brla.gov. That's the city parish website, brla.gov. We'll talk about this one.
this one is the right website.
Is that used to be br.gov?
No, we were brgov.com at one time.
Okay.
Yes.
But that'll still connect, won't it?
Yes. Yep.
It'll still
That's what I used to search. Okay.
But digging in a little bit more to some of our specific portals. Like I said, Warren will talk about EBR GIS.
Oh.
Okay. But yes, this is the correct website. Data.brla.gov is the home of our open data portal. So we have over 200. Is this going to transition? Data sets available through open data, anything from crime incidents, 311 requests, all types of things of that nature. In city parish, we have an open data policy. So by default, data available through that city parish is working with is available and publicly transparent. So you can find anything that you're looking for as in terms of data on our open data website. Here are some of our top used ones. Adjudicated property is our most accessed data set. So the list of all of the properties that have been adjudicated and are available for sale through that process. The Baton Rouge crime incidents, building permits, traffic incidents, all types of information is available through there. It is more tabular data. So if you think of Excel and spreadsheets, that's the kind of data that's available there. And then Warren will talk about the location-based data and the maps that's available through EBR GIS. One of our other really cool tools is Open Budget. So it takes that transparent data and information. There's a huge budget document that's hundreds of pages long, but this makes it a little bit easier to navigate. So if you go to budget.brla.gov and you're interested in, okay, the new 2023 budget that was just passed, what departments are being allocated, what sort of money, this is a really cool tool that you can use to dig into, you know, how the money is being planned to be spent for the parish. Very interactive. You can just click through it. It's very cool. Even in my experience in IS for almost a year now, I've learned so many different things about how the city parish works in the budget through tools like this. And then we also have our open checkbook. So obviously every year they pass a budget, but then there's actually how the departments are spending the money. You can dig in as well down to an invoice level of how each department is spending their money. Also very similar, very easy to navigate. You can go by department or different categories and click through and see exactly how that money is being spent. So just trying to be as transparent as possible with the community. And so you can get in and really see for yourself how that money is being spent. Another really cool platform as far as open data goes is our Open Neighborhood VR. This may be interesting to you if you're someone that's always on Nextdoor and seeing what people are talking about and trash not getting picked up, or maybe there's a pothole request that's been submitted. This tool is very useful because you can search, say, your own address and see in a radius of your own home where crime incidents are occurring, fire incidents are occurring, 311, building permits, maybe someone's building some new properties or doing some redevelopment on properties in your neighborhood, and you want to know what's going on. This is a great place to do it. So there's always the chatter on social media, but then I always say, here's what's really going on, because this is all data straight from either 311, BRPD, fire department, things of that nature. So like I said, you can search an address and you can change the radius. So maybe you just want to know just in your neighborhood what's going on, or maybe near your business, you want to know like within a mile or 3 mile radius, what crime incidents are occurring. You can look at it for maybe just the past week, the past month, or the past 6 months. And then it displays over here on the right of here's every single crime incident. So again, real transparency where you may see someone talking about, oh, did anyone hear gunshots? Or did something's going on? This is something that you can check the next day, and it'll show you what was happening from the day before or the week before, the month before, with different information of specific addresses. And you know, if it is a crime incident, it gives details on that crime incident, when it occurred, things of that nature. Very useful. What I also think is really interesting is you can also set up alerts. So say you want to know on a weekly basis all of the crime incidents that are happening within a mile of your house. So you can go on Open Neighborhood. It's just my.brla.gov. Type in your address, you set your radius, and you can click this button that says create alert. You'll have to create an account. You just set it up with your email, and you'll make a password. And you say, yeah, send me an email either every day, every week, and you'll get a summary email weekly, monthly, of a list of every single incident or 311 request that's happened in your neighborhood, so you can stay as up to date as possible without having to log back in. Warren will touch on this in a minute, but we do have tutorial videos on how to use all these tools. They're not always the most intuitive, and it can be a little bit intimidating, but we have these tutorial videos that Warren will tell you about how to use all these tools and really dig in and use them to the best of their abilities. So now I'll turn it over to Warren to talk about GIS.
Sure. Anybody have any questions for Helen?
I know that was a lot of information all at once. Yeah.
On the adjudicated properties,
Mhm.
can that be sorted?
Yes, and there's actually a map version of it too. And if you want, once we get through our presentation, we're happy to pull up that map for that list and show you if you have specific questions, we can click through that.
We have a little thing that's gonna give us the address to make, so we make sure we know.
Yes, so I have handouts.
That list that she had up before, one was subdivisions. Can you get plats off of that?
You could, so we don't have the plats linked to the properties, but the assessor does. So if you were to visit the assessor's geo portal, you find the property you're interested in, there's a link to the plat there. If you don't, if
I'm
you.
just looking a whole subdivision plat, man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It would be connected to,
Okay,
through the assessor's GIS site.
okay.
If you couldn't find it for whatever reason, because some of them they're missing, you could contact us and we'll get it from our files and just email it to you. But yeah, that's not something that we have in our GIS at this time. Okay, so who's used Open Data BR before, or Open Neighborhood? Anybody? No? How about our GIS site?
Fresh.
All right.
That's why we need to learn.
Well, so to get to the GIS page, you type in gis.brla.gov. And actually, that would take you to a slightly different looking site of this, but there's a link to this portal from that homepage. This is our front end to basically accessing all of the city's official maps and its dashboards and such, lookup tools. Did I do something wrong? See, my screen went blank here.
There it is.
Okay. If you scroll down this page, the first section is the gallery of all the most common or most frequently used maps that we have. Everything from looking at drainage and flood hazard areas, maps of different jurisdictional boundaries, the city limits, the council district boundaries. I want to actually show you this one here and the this historical maps and imagery. I want to do a little demo of that one because it's some new things that we've added to that. If you're interested in looking at some of the older maps and imagery that we have. Planning, if anybody that's interested in property, maybe for real estate or development, the planning and land development app is another very frequently used application we have.
I can't see where you're pointing from.
That one's here.
Okay.
I'm gonna actually demo that for you.
Okay.
Well, I'll show you a better slide of it. So what did you do to get forward?
Just click.
Next.
Oh,
Okay. And so these screenshots are just as if I'm continuing to scroll down the page. So the next section is of dashboards that we have. We have things that focus strictly on 311 requests that have been submitted. This past year, when we received that American Rescue funding for drainage projects, there's a dashboard that's been kept up to date every week on the status of those projects and how they're coming along. Most recently, we developed a dashboard using Baton Rouge Police Department's crime data, so you can see trends, things going up, going down. I'll show you a screenshot of it. For a long time, we were maintaining a dashboard of COVID data, but actually we just stopped updating it last at the end of the year.
You got one for construction project status?
That was Move BR project status for all the road projects.
Okay.
Yes, we do have one of those. A lot of those projects are still kind of in that design phase, but the information, once it starts flowing, we'll update that map as well.
Yeah, well, I'm near the Picardy extension
Okay.
and I walk the dog around to look at
Gotcha.
it, but it's hard to see
Yeah.
exactly how far, percentage wise, how far
Percentage
they are.
wise, right. I
How
gotcha.
about rezoning projects?
That would be on the planning and land development.
It would be,
Yes, sir.
because one I live in, they want to rezone and nobody's in favor of it.
Gotcha. Again, scrolling down the page, the next little section is a series of lookup tools that we have. The majority of these work by you typing in an address or just a street name. If you wanted to see everything like such as every lot within Terra subdivision and which council district those lots are within, or all the property details for a specific lot, maybe in your neighborhood. You know, we have 40, more than 40 details per lot for every property in this parish. Everything from zoning to land use to who's my council person, what day was my trash being picked up, the school district, and so forth. We have an app or a lookup tool to see which road closures are which roads are currently closed and which ones are going to be closed within the next 3 or 4 days. Our traffic engineering department keeps track of those for us. And we also have, if you're interested in looking up demographics from the census, we have census data going back to 2000, where it's a full-blown set of demographic data. Previous to 2000, we actually have just population statistics all the way back to 1880, I believe, whatever one of the first censuses there were. So you can see how the parish has grown through the years with that lookup tool. All right, so this is a more up-close view of that planning and land development web application I mentioned. When it opens up, it's really colorful, and what it's showing you is by color codes, all the different zoning for properties throughout the city and the parish. Remember, our city parish planning commission, its jurisdiction does not include Baker Central and Zachary, so you wouldn't see any color within those cities, but we do have property information for those cities. We just don't deal with their zoning. But in this application, again, you could find out who, you know, the assessor's parcel data is included here, so you could find out who owns or who pays taxes on a parcel, what the assessed value is. The planning commission has not only zoning, it has overlay districts that control the design of buildings and so forth. All those kind of data layers are included in this app. Trying to think, any street, who, you know, the street data that we have, it includes who owns the road, the block ranges along that length of the road from low to high on other things. But when the app opens, notice up here at the top next to the title, if there's a specific location you're looking for, you can type your address there and hit enter, and then the map will zoom to that spot. And then from there, you could click on the different layers that are in the map. There's buttons within the frame to turn on the legend as you see it here, or to toggle between other layers. So sometimes when you open our maps, there's more than meets the eye, and you have to actually go in and toggle on or off the layers. If you try to load everything at once, sometimes it's just a big gobbly mess, right? So these are all meant to be very interactive. The data that you're looking at is typically updated every week on Sundays. Our process is to work on the data all week long. We do our checks and make sure everything's valid on Fridays, and then over the weekend it refreshes. So it's usually not older than 1 week, whatever you're seeing here. Some layers obviously don't change that frequently, so there's no need to update them. But yes, sir.
Does it have the flood zone map overlay on
This-
that for zone?
This does, yes, sir. So you could turn that on and off and determine, you know, from your own for your own self which flood zone a property is in. Sometimes we don't use that as a detail on a lot, meaning like to click on the lot and get the details and see the code that flood zone, is it an A, E, or AO? Because sometimes a flood zone cuts through the middle of a lot, and it could be 2 or, you know, or even more. So that's the reason we don't just code it that way. Anybody else about this map?
When Mom said, wait, how much, is that the whole city? Is that just coming down by the river? What are we looking at?
This is really only showing you part of downtown and some of mid-city, but the map all of our maps cover the entire parish.
Yeah, but I was just getting an
Yes,
orientation
ma'am.
as to what, because it looked like it was downtown
It's mostly
It is
downtown,
downtown.
yes.
with the interstate.
So I mentioned this is our latest dashboard from working with Baton Rouge Police Department. It was really came from Chief Paul's mind. He wanted to be more transparent. Not
Thank you.
update.
You have to share a screen on that.
Did it freeze?
Maybe. Well. There we go.
All right. This really stemmed from an idea that Chief Paul had and to be more transparent with crime data. And again, what you're seeing here is strictly for within the city of Baton Rouge. This is data from the police department, our police department. And of course, where we are here is in the middle of the city, so all these trends would apply. Along the top, the first two rows are categories of a call when someone calls 911 for they call for service, whatever it may be about. Those calls are coded based on, is it an assault, or maybe it's just a disturbance, or there's been a theft or something like that. So we took the main categories and placed them along the top two rows. And all the numbers you see in white reflect the total number of calls for this time period, which is 28 days. And this, again, this data actually updates every day. Okay. The number you're seeing as a percentage is the trend comparing this 28-day period to the previous 28-day period. So has it gone up, down, or remained the same? So you can see in this screenshot, when this was taken, most all crimes were trending downwards except for robberies, which were actually really hot, up 36%, and mental health calls up 3%. Now that covers the top section. This bottom section where it says other stats, these are updated weekly because the data has to go through several different entities to get to the point where I take it and put it into this dashboard to present it. We actually had to create processes to make this happen. So the first two numbers you see here deal with homicides. They're separated because there's a difference between an actual homicide where somebody, kills someone, but there's also negligent and then justifiable homicides. So the way they do crime stats, they keep those separate, right? Notice these little black tabs below these statistics in the bottom with the little arrows pointing left and right. If you click on those arrows, it actually shows you more information. Okay. Again, this isn't quite as interactive as a map, but it is interactive. So there's more than meets the eye. The next two metrics are for felony arrests that have been made. Any kind of crime that a person was arrested for that could be, put in jail. There's a felony arrest as opposed to just a misdemeanor. And then the last metric is the number of firearms that the police officers are taking off of our streets. So you can see, they are actually making a lot more arrests and taking a lot of firearms off the streets. There's a link in this last box here to more crime stats. That'll take you out to the Baton Rouge Police Department's website where they have more detailed reports. And then finally, on the right-hand side, there's 3 different metrics. But once again, notice the little tabs that you can click between to see more. So starting at the top right, that's the total number of 911 calls for service year to date versus the same period of time last year to date. So actually last year, there was less calls for service, 911 calls for service handled by the police department than there were in 2021. But the eye opener here is to see just how many calls that they take. At this point in time, it was 193,000 calls to date. You can see how busy they are. So then the next two boxes, the middle box and the bottom right box, take all these calls for service and break it down into whether they're property type crimes, where people are stealing things or doing damage to property, versus violent calls for service when there's, you know, shots being fired and people are being assaulted. Any questions about this?
That's just the Baton Rouge, police, not the sheriff.
Not each sheriff. We're working towards that,
Okay.
but for now, this is just the police department.
Where do you y'all's map show jurisdiction of the two departments? I used to work at the clerk's office many years ago. I used to get that question all the time.
Well, the Baton Rouge,
Corporal limits versus non-corporal.
you could see that most, I guess, easiest using our governmental boundaries map. It would show you the city limits of Baton Rouge.
And that's on.
That's in our our EBR GIS portal. It would show you the city limits of Baton Rouge. And then, you know, honestly, the sheriff is over the entire parish, but the Baton Rouge Police Department handles everything within the city. Sometimes, yeah. Now, before I do this, Helen,
Oh, yeah.
let me actually do a quick demo of something. I mentioned to you the historic maps and imagery app that we have. And not just showing you what this map is about, but all of our mapping applications have been built kind of on the same template. So I'm going to show you some of those buttons that I was just describing so you'll know what to look for. So again, this map would be on the front page of the GIS portal site. And when it opens, you're going to see some black and white photography here. Baton Rouge is really fortunate. Well, the parish is really fortunate that we have a lot of aerial photography from way back. And I used to work at the Planning Commission before I came to work with Information Services, and we had this old photography, and we scanned it, and then gave it all to the library to put in the Baton Rouge room. Well, we've got a fair number of folks on my staff now, and I was able to get one of these guys to take that scanned imagery and basically like digitally stitch it all together. And then I then took it and published it in this map. So long story short, if I zoom out, you can see the whole parish here. And this by default is showing you the oldest imagery that we have of this parish is from 1941. It's thinking, yeah. So you can go back in time and flip through the different years of imagery that we have and just, you know, visually see how this parish has changed over decades. Right now we have 1941, 1953, and 1959, all accessible in this map. So if I zoom back in, I like to take the state capitol as an example. I'm just double clicking on the map and it zooms. I could also click this little plus sign up here in the top left to zoom in. So you can see just, you know, the Capitol was what, maybe 8, 9 years old at this point. How white all the concrete is and the trees are just little dots. So look for this button in the top right here. It's like a series of layers stacked on top of each other. If you click that, that's where you'd see all the other hidden layers in our maps, and you can use a little checkbox here to toggle them on and off. If I scroll down, you'll see that the 1953 and 1959 imagery are here. So if I If I turn on the 53, the image is a lot brighter for whatever reason. But you know, you can start to see that the trees are beginning to fill out. If I zoom out slightly, you can see once how big Capitol Lake was. And somebody, an engineer, I guess, that was involved with the I-110 project, drew on the aerial photograph here. You can see where the lanes were going to be put in. But then if I go ahead and turn on the 59, the construction actually has begun. Showing I-110 by the Governor's Mansion curve under construction here. And a large chunk of of Capitol Lake has been filled in. If you're familiar with where DOTD's building is, it's being constructed right now in this photo. Helen, the little toolbox is being covered by
Oh, you can.
the bar. Can I move that? Okay.
They can't see that. Oh, you can.
So at the bottom of all of our web applications here, there's usually a little toolbox that allow you to do different things. Like, for example, measure something or print the map on a nice, 8.5 by 11 size. Well, this in particular has what's called a swipe tool. Let me turn off a couple of these things here. This little swipe tool right here in the middle, if I turn it on, it's going to ask me which layer do I want to swipe, and I'm going to the historic marker layer, the little blue. Can you see the little blue dots kind of all over the place? That's what that is. But I'm going to switch it to the imagery, and what happens is I'm overlaying the 1941 imagery with the current imagery, which was taken back in October. And so you can drag this back and forth and just see, current day versus back then.
That's cool. That is cool.
Now, let me show you something else real quick. Now that I got everybody's smiling. The Brook Hill Ferry that is exposed right now on the levee. We marked it. Everyone know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see it really clearly in our most recent imagery here. If I zoom in.
It's just like a second or two behind you.
Yeah, I'm just realizing that.
It's coming and going.
Yeah. So you can see that?
Mhm.
That's the ship. Or part of it, at least. We even put a hyperlink here to it. If you click, again, always remember you can click on these things and there's more information behind the scenes. We put a hyperlink. The State Department of Culture, Recreation and Tourism had a drone go fly over this thing. And so we linked to that, the results of that flight. But anyways, if I swipe between the current and the 1941, the river happened to be pretty low then too. And you can actually see an old ferry here docked. You can't quite make out the Brook Hill because the resolution's not high enough, but that's the kind of thing you can do with this app. So our plan is, we're currently working on imagery, stitching together imagery from 1968. Once that's complete, we'll start work on 1970. I think it's like 1976. It's the first color imagery we ever got of the parish. And then once that's done, the last one will be 1981.
So you could take a place like where the airport used to be in Goodwood, and then you could take those maps and see it all develop into what it's like today, more or less.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's going to be somebody's really going to get into this. I hope, right? Because it's a wealth of information if you want to study the way the city grew, at least back to 1941. But notice too, in the layer list here, there's other old maps that we've scanned and geo-referenced so that they'll pop up right where they're, should be. Let me exit out of this and I'll show you that. So notice how these map layers are grayed out. That just means that you cannot look at them at this scale, at this zoom level. So if I back out a little bit, these are going to begin to turn black, and that tells you that they're visible. Like if I wanted to look at a 1930 map of Baton Rouge, I could turn it on and see, I can't get over how many times we've changed street names in this city through the years. The same street over and over again, looking at these old maps. I mentioned about all these other buttons. So that was the layer list here. The one to the left of it is the legend. And the way the legend works is whatever layers you have turned on, then the legend will reflect that. Okay. And then the button to the right is to change out the base map. So by default, some maps have the most recent imagery, again, which was in October, as the basis. Let me turn this map off as well as. So the current imagery is the default base map. But if I didn't want to see that and I wanted to choose maybe like a street map instead, so I can actually see the names of all the roads and such, then you can go to the button with the 4 squares on it and select your preference here. There's a topographic map, and we're actually sharing the city's data with this company that makes this software. So even this base map here is pretty current. They update it about every 3 months. It's not Google. Google takes our data. We are actually giving these folks our data. It's a partnership. So it's going to be more current than Google. I got one more thing to talk to you guys about, unless you had a question for me.
No, but I can make a comment.
Yes,
Before the
sir.
flood, I used to have a bunch of pictures showing 2 dirt roads, Airline Highway and Ford Boulevard. And I had pictures of the circle that were building it, creating it there.
Oh, that's cool.
That's actually, so
Unfortunately, the flood got it.
that is actually shown in the, if I go back to 41, there's a massive amount of vacant property out at that intersection there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where we are now is just woods.
Yeah, airline was eastern.
Well, airline was the beltway
So
on the outside of the city,
It's
and 190 was the highway.
Pull it out.
Is there one there with the bridge and then no bridge, the big bridge?
This one does not have the I-10 bridge. There is no I-10.
Right. So I used to deliver records, to WAIL, which is way out.
What's the latest date you have?
The most recent is from October.
So.
It must have the whole bridge.
So you can see the Amazon.
There's an LSU, you know,
Yes, sir.
traffic stop, you out in the woods.
I just.
Warren, talk a little bit about how often we refresh that inventory. And why?
We, so when the GIS started back in the 90s, you have to have imagery to do a lot of the work that we do to map all this stuff. Because there's, we get drawings and so forth when subdivisions are platted, but there's still so many other assets out there that have to be mapped, building footprints. So you have to have imagery to do a lot of this work. So again, back when in the 90s, 96 was the very first it wasn't true digital, but it was what they call ortho rectified, where they do something to the image and it makes it where you're looking straight down at it. The buildings don't show lean and all these kind of things. That's when we started collecting digital imagery, and we have it every 2 years. Well, in 2017, 2018, we partnered with a vendor that had been flying for insurance companies, especially after storms, to make sure that folks who were making claims weren't, doing it on the shady side. Well, this company kind of perfected the process of capturing the imagery and then turning it right back around to the customer. And they wanted to get into government. So we were one of their first customers actually in the government arena. Now we're getting this quality imagery every 6 months. We'll have a flight this month so that we make sure we get the leaves off because we need to be able to see through the trees. And then we'll have another flight usually in September. They were late with this one because they had to send all their planes down to Fort Myers, Florida. So they were a little late with
What
us.
company are you using?
It's a company called Nearmap. They're actually based out of Australia. But they have a
We
US
used to have two aerial. Here in
Aerodata.
Baton Rouge
Aerodata they were one of our first
and
vendors.
Gulf
yeah.
Coast.
Gulf Coast Aerial Mapping Company, yeah.
Now, that's the Amazon building there now.
Yes,
Wouldn't it
ma'am.
be fun to toggle back and forth within that Cortana circle and see the mall and then the Amazon, mall, Amazon?
That's it.
Woods wonder up there.
I can look at this stuff all day long. It's mesmerizing.
Play in those woods where that.
So, Helen mentioned we have these videos to kind of help with learning how to navigate all this stuff, because we realize it's, I've been doing this 25 years, so I got it, but we want to make it accessible to everyone. So 2-3 years ago now, it was in the middle of the COVID years when we couldn't come out and do things like this. Eric and I recorded they were live. And we would go through presentations just like this on different digital, platforms that we have. And then it dawned on us that we could just do little short 5 to 10 minute videos specifically on an app. Like you mentioned, Open Neighborhood or Open Budget. There's many of them on the planning and land development map that I showed you. There's a video just for that. And it walks you through step by step exactly what every little button does. Just basically how to use it. And they're all on this site, brla.gov/data academy, all one word. I think there's 24 of them right now. We're planning to make more, and we have, obviously we have to keep them updated too because the apps do change. But yeah, I would suggest if you're into this stuff, go to the Data Academy and just start at the top. There's 4 categories. Yeah. One of them is just kind of like the introduction to open data and GIS. And then it gets more specific, like the apps that are focused on government operations, the apps that are for citizens. And the last one is for it's escaping me. This happened.
Community development. Living in Baton Rouge, community development, open data, government, something or other. City parish government.
City parish government.
Yeah, that's the one.
Operations. Yeah. Okay. And then, like I said, they're all like 5 to 10 minutes long.
So kind of tie up those two presentations, a lot of data that we have. Important to make, not only is it important that we're being transparent in making sure that the citizens who really paid for all this data has access to it, but with the Data Academy, it's extremely important not only to put the data out there and all these applications out there, but to put it out in a way that y'all can use it. And that's where the Data Academy comes in. Warren mentioned GIS being started in the 90s. So this year is going to be the 30th year of GIS. So think about collecting data for 30 years. That's our GIS data, our mapping data. He doesn't like me saying this. I will put it up against any municipality in the region. Not because all the bells and whistles, the dashboards and the maps and everything. It's the data. It's a lot of data. And it's very mature data because we've had it for so long. So we've been correcting it. It's not perfect, we know that. And if anybody ever finds something that's not right with the data, we want to know about that too. So just wanted to throw that plug out to GIS. There'll be some additional messaging coming out towards the middle and end of the year as we kind of celebrate that, having that program for that long. So I'm going to put this back into full screen. So I'm going to speak a little bit about Red Stick 311 and kind of mentioned it before we started. We've tried to be very efficient with making it very easy to get calls into city parish. Kind of the joke is once it gets in, we're still struggling with getting the crews out in an efficient manner to address them. We'll share a couple stories where we are using technology to kind of help in that process. So 311 is a number you're going to call currently for a lot of your public works requests. So if I need a ditch cleaned out, a pothole, missed garbage service, you can call 311. You can use the website 311.brla.gov, or there is a mobile app for Android and iPhone devices. I am going to go through the app, screenshots of the app. The website is similar. You're capturing the same information. And it's the same information that the call takers, if you call 311, they have the back end system and they're pretty much asking you the same questions. So here's the homepage of the 311 app. Report and issue, the first button there on the left. That's what you click, of course, to report an issue. There are, what is that, 10, 11, 12 different parent categories. And as you drill down to one of those, see, we were in blighted, so pick the first item. There are subcategories. So depending on which subcategory you pick, it routes it to the correct department that handles that type of task. So after you pick whichever subtype you're wanting to report, it throws up the map. If your phone has location enabled, it'll pick up your location. So if you're at the pothole or the pile of debris or something to that effect, you can just click continue and it automatically captured it. If you saw it, you know, if you saw the pothole riding down the road on Florida Boulevard, you can go and adjust the dot or search for the address as well. Give us some comments. And let's see. So after that, it's submitted. You can add photos as well, which is extremely useful for the crews because they have access to that. Give an example of that shortly. So back to the homepage, the little hamburger button up here in the upper left hand corner will give you this menu here. You have to, when you submit a request, you do have to create an account. But where that's useful is that you'll be able to track your past requests as well. So if you want to check the status of a request, you don't need to call back in the 311. You can just use the app and look it up that way as well.
I got a question.
Yep.
When I'm completed this form and log off, does it automatically send that to my councilman,
So to your councilman,
city councilman person,
no, not to them.
in addition to whoever department?
Okay, so yeah, so it will go straight to the department that's handling. So that's another important thing. It doesn't go, if you call 311, you're talking to the call takers. And oftentimes they get a bum rap because they're dealing with the public and the public's irate because trash isn't picked up, and we understand that, but they're the ones just taking the call. They're not picking up the trash, right? But this is a little bit more efficient because you're bypassing that. You're going straight to, once it's submitted, it goes into the queue for maintenance or development or traffic engineering. The council members, all the aides have access to the same system. Depending on the council aide, they're monitoring it, some of them more frequently than others. We are giving the council members, I'm trying to remember, it's not a detailed list, but it's a summary list of the type of requests that have come in for the past month. So they get a monthly report. And then we have a monthly council aid meeting that we kind of, if there's issues that they're noticing, they'll bring up as well. So it just all depends on the council member, how engaged they are or how engaged their aides are. I know that there were council members that actually had logins to the system, and they were looking at reports as well for their area.
So when this gets completed, I don't automatically get anything back saying it's been done.
So let me remember how that worked. If you do it through the app, I think there's a checkbox when you set up if you want to get notified, notifications. I know when you call in, 311 will ask you, and they'll check the box to send the email when it's complete.
Okay.
So this is the one of the first. So we went live with the app, and I think that same day I was walking. We have employees have a credit union downtown, and I was walking there and came across this pile of debris that's on Spain Street. So I was like, well, I have the app now. Let me go ahead and put it in. So again, it's very useful to have a picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So I may have typed it in that it's on Spain Street, or maybe I was confused and I put St. Charles Street. Well, if it's a picture, the crews can kind of easily see exactly where it was that the issue resides. So that's the quick overview of the app. We talked about open data. Every night, all the 311 requests will go into open data as well. It also, Helen mentioned open neighborhood. That again goes back to, we're trying to make, we realize that different individuals consume data differently. So if you're, my previous gig before director was a database administrator. So I love raw data. I like looking at it in tables. I can sort it, filter it. I can make it do all kinds of things. You know, mom and pop that's at home, they just want to know what's going on in my neighborhood. Open neighborhood's the right spot. The folks that are more interested in the location, the GIS, the spatial type data, the GIS system, it's for the most part, it's all using the same data. So data comes from here, it goes into open data BR. It also feeds open neighborhood BR. I think Warren has some dashboards in the GIS side. It's all using the same data. It's just, how do you want to consume that data? What does it make more sense for you? Which application makes more sense for you?
Yeah, just last things really quickly. So this, we covered a lot of stuff in this short amount of time. We are happy to come back anytime, or if you've got a church group or a neighborhood group that you want us to come talk about open neighborhood or open checkbook or all the same stuff, we're happy to do that. Our email is on that handout. My whole job is this. It's like Eric said, we put all of this time and effort building these tools, not for ourselves, but for people like y'all who are interested in engaging. And again, it's no use if we build it and no one knows how to use it or isn't aware of it. So if there's something that you want to learn more about, we're happy to come back to these meetings. But again, this is what we want to do. We want to talk about this stuff. We geek out about it and how excited we are about it. So always happy to share. Pictured here, I will do a plug. We are training our maintenance department on how to use a lot of these tools, how to use that 311 data so that they can do their jobs more effectively, building tools for them instead of just going down the list, but looking what's in the area. If you're gonna go fill one pothole, let's fill all the potholes in the mile radius, just trying to help them work as efficiently as possible. And then Warren's doing trainings at all of the BRPD training academies now too. So every time a police officer is joining in, they're getting training on a lot of that data that you have in the dashboard and even more. They have an entire database and system of how they also are using data to work efficiently. So that's what we're doing every day.
Check the chat.
Oh, is there,
I think.
oh,
there
we
may
have a
been
question?
couple that popped up.
Oh, Judith just says we have an awesome presentation. Thanks, Judith. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, we post on Nextdoor every, there's not like a website to tune in there. I post on Nextdoor every week for our Tech Tuesdays. Anything from cybersecurity, new tools. I'm posting next week about how we'll be doing our open data policy report at council on the 11th. Open budget 2023 is now available. We post about things like that, or if we're doing big presentations. That goes on Facebook for the city or Twitter. Our YouTube also has not only all of those Citizen Data Academy videos, but our GIS Day presentations, and then a whole bunch of other stuff, whether it's Office of Community Development or other departments that are doing presentations, we'll put those up there. And then again, if you want presentations, or if you want a one-on-one meeting where I just sit with you and walk through this, I'm happy to do that. And you can email us at isoutreach@brla.gov.
We have a bunch of tools. When Warren and I both started in 2015, when we first launched Open Data, it was easy. We presented on Open Data, and then we presented on GIS. Now we have all of these things. It's hard for us to get in to the weeds of it and to really show everything. Because we want to, a lot of these meetings, it's just, we want to make y'all aware of everything that's out there. We have the tutorials on the Data Academy, but as Helen mentioned, if there's something specific over the course of the year, y'all, hey, we looked at this map. I want y'all to come in and talk about this map, give us a deep dive in here. We'll be happy to set that up as well.
Are you in the municipal building?
At City Hall, downtown.
Yeah.
City Hall.
Down in the basement. Yes,
Can we take this and put it on our HOA websites?
yeah, absolutely. If you want me to email it to you, we have I can give you a digital copy or a link to it.
Yes.
If you I'll get your email from you, and we can definitely do that. Or if y'all want some extra copies, you're welcome to take some as well.
Well, you could also get it, we could put the link to it, Pat, in the newsletter.
Yeah, that's perfect. We can definitely do that. I'll send that over. Anything else? I'm happy to, I don't know what, I might be going way over time. I don't know what time y'all end, but I'm happy to pull up the adjudication information if anyone's interested in that too.
Is there any problem with all this data being out there? I mean, I know your address and all that stuff has always been in City Hall and everybody has a right to go look at it, but it's a lot easier to just look up on a map and say, oh, I like that place, and they get a lot of data. Do you ever get into trouble with people using data wrong?
Have not, I mean, that is a valid concern, especially with all the cybersecurity concerns that we have now and privacy. So it is, as you mentioned, it is, these are all public records. So what we have a very thorough process before anything is put out there. The department has to sign off on it. We IS have to sign off on it. Parish attorney, so legal signs off on it to make sure it's a public record. There's no protected information. And then the administration is made aware that we're posting it out there. We haven't had any issues. I know that some of so we have our employee salary information out there, city parish employee salary information. I know that we've had several employees kind of push back on that because they're thinking it's a risk, but really the advocate every year, they made a request and they put it out on their website. So it's going to be out there one way or the other. We feel that if it's coming from us, it's a little bit better controlled. But it's definitely a concern. And as the cyber threats continue to advance, Warren hates this, but that's like my main focus at work right now. It is protecting the city parish network and data that we do have. And it's, we can actually give a cybersecurity presentation too. And I'm sure they're happy that I didn't go into that field, but it is something that every day there is a new threat, and it is it is a monumental task to keep yourself protected, not just at the city side. Y'all, as the citizens, need to do that as well. And we're starting a new project, or started it last month, to start up a community-based cybersecurity program where we're working with LSU and Southern and the K through 12 schools and the business community and the public, just to increase cyber awareness, to make you aware of the threat so that you can properly address them.
This is one thing that, yes, you can go down to the courthouse and find out all this information. It's something else for me to be able to sit in the middle of
Yeah.
Africa and look it up
Right.
on the internet and
Right.
find out everything about the city of Baton Rouge. I mean, it's good, bad.
No, right, that's exactly right.
The platform has to be kept updated on cybersecurity.
Definitely, that's it.
We're showing you all the data that's publicly accessible. There's a lot of data that's secured because of, personal information, or it's critical infrastructure and so forth. Like Helen kind of alluded to, the police department has its own GIS mapping portal for all the crime analysis they do, and it's completely locked down to just police officers.
So just quickly, this is a good example of kind of the difference of, like Eric was explaining, it's just how you want to consume the data. So you're asking about adjudicated data, if there's a way you can filter it. So you can go to the map and you can use some of the filtering through the map to say from a location or different qualities, when it was adjudicated, what year it was, things of that nature. And you can view it on a visual basis like this, and you can see each red square is an adjudicated property. I'm a little behind. It's thinking. So each red square is adjudicated property, and there we go. And you can click on each of those boxes, so you can look maybe in your neighborhood or again by your business, and you can pop out. Okay, here is all the information on that property. You could get in really into the weeds, and even pull up this way and filter it from this view, and that'll filter all the different red squares, and you can zoom in based on location, or you can view it via open data. And this is, like I said, a spreadsheet level, and there's still ways that you can filter it, but you just have a different viewpoints. Maybe you want to sort it from, oldest adjudicated to most recent, things of that nature, but just based on how you want to consume it. And then you can export that and use your own research. I was talking with, doing some presentations for Councilwoman Banks for her district, because she's really focused on redevelopment in the Baker area. So there's people who are there who are like, okay, we want to buy adjudicated property. How do we do it? And so they want to be able to zoom in visually and pull information that way. So we talked about it that way. But there's a lot of people, again, this is our most accessed database. So there's a lot of different businesses and real estate companies that are looking at this all the time, using it to their ability. So that's one of those things that we want to talk about as much as possible. So, that information is kind of democratized and everyone has access to it. But if you want to, again, if you want to dig in on adjudicated, I'm happy to sit down and show you the best ways to use this. We had a citizen, do you have a data academy? No, we've talked about that.
Not specifically on adjudicated.
Not adjudicated.
Data.
We've been talking about it.
Because then we can
Talk about the process is pretty complicated on acquiring it.
Yeah.
So that's things that we talk about of how to make this most effective. But I think that's all we got. Any more questions? Thank you all so much for having us. We really appreciate it.